living British citizen was part of the slave trade, you know, and we're not responsible, any of us living today, for the crimes of dead slave traders. So why are we being asked to apologize, to pay reparations? Writing someone a check is not going to undo what someone feels about their history.
So you can force Germany to pay for 80 years, but asking Britain to acknowledge slavery is crazy. So guys, I've watched this white British journalist sit on television and tell the world that we need to get over slavery. Like, it's an ex-girlfriend or boyfriend is still texting at 2 a.m. She said no living person owns slaves. So why will they pay? But here's what she won't say. Her country is still mining gold from Ghana, still profiting from Caribbean ports, still sitting on artifacts stolen from my country, Kenya. The slave trade didn't end, guys. It just got a corporate rebrand. And the moment we ask what is owned, suddenly history is too complicated to remember. And I'm not talking about guilt here. Let us talk about mathematics and the real reason they won't pay. Because money is power and they know exactly what we do with it. Guys, I want you to stay with me. We're about to dismantle every excuse they've been hiding behind. So there is this clip I want you to watch the very end, and then I'll be back to discuss everything with you.
No living British citizen was part of the slave trade, you know, and we're not responsible, any of us living today, for the crimes of dead slave traders. So why are we being asked to apologize, to pay reparations? Writing someone a check is not going to undo what someone feels about their history.
What if we're still profiting from it?
What we all profit, that people all over the world are living a life that they may not have led if, you know, if slaves hadn't been used. Okay, we know that. Every city, every building built by slaves.
This from someone. Okay, you live in a country. You live in a country which, after the First World War, Germany was absolutely forced to pay reparations, and they're still paying off. Oh, the Brits don't worry about that. They've never said, oh well, living young Germans had nothing to do with that. Japan was made to pay huge reparation bills. Somehow Britain, when called upon to at least make a gesture, the royals actually benefited hugely. So did Taten lives. So I find it so extraordinary that's when you disengage.
But they lost a war, Japan and Germany.
Yeah, yes, reparations was insisted on. Nobody said, okay, we're going to forget this, it happened, it's history. When it suits us, right? And you know, I think Jamaica, I have a lot of Jamaican friends, they wouldn't have been this exercised because they have been fond of the royals. Without the Windrush scandal. That really shocked them.
Something odd is happening with this trip. I don't quite get it. I can't work out. Firstly, this idea that a letter has been written by 100 Jamaican leaders, that sounds like a lot of people, but then 100 leaders? And then the other thing is, I thought William and Kate had people saying, look, watch, this is going to be a tricky one. But obviously nobody said that to them. So they keep going to places where they're told they're not welcome.
Well, I think Barbados started something by declaring itself a republic and dissociating from that. But I think the Windrush scandal has had a real impact.
But you know, now
bobsleighing, by the way.
It seems crazy to me that we're making moral judgments today in the 21st century about what happened 200 years. You know, we had Tony Blair apologizing for the potato famine, saying, what was he said? He was expressed his sorrow and regret for something that happened a century before he was born.
But I think that's
nonsense. It's empty gesture politics.
Carol, that's decency.
It's
not absolutely decency.
No, it isn't. It's empty gesture. It's
Do you
words.
know that the effects of slavery are still playing out among Black Americans and in the Caribbean? It isn't over for them.
So how do you think writing a check is
extraordinary?
How is writing a check going to solve their problem?
Oh, I think
what they might feel in the head.
A little bit.
How? Tell me how. Explain how.
It is one of the poorest countries in the world.
So you think that, no, that, never mind because it's one of the poorest countries. How is it going to help what they feel about slavery? How is it going to change what they feel?
They will feel it has been acknowledged.
That's what they
you can't just you don't
acknowledge things with money.
I'm sorry.
Show you care.
I'm sorry. You can't just dismiss a history because it doesn't agree with you.
You know, I'm pretty sure that, you know, the next generation, our descendants, are going to talk about us in the way we're now talking about what happened 200 years ago. You know, are they going to criticize us for burning fossil fuels? Are they going to criticize us for letting kids have sex changes and start taking hormones aged 14?
Was it?
So we're going every age has wrongdoing.
My question was just that was it that long ago? And here's why I asked that. I was born in 1965. Lincoln was shot in 1865. So only 100 years before I was born, he's the guy who said, we're not having slavery in the state. It doesn't seem, suddenly to me now, it doesn't seem that long ago.
But let's just get over this myth. There were people in this country, women in particular, who while the slave trade was going on, absolutely opposed it on moral grounds. The Quakers in America and here.
But we got out ahead of
our sensibility.
But that's the point.
They knew.
But we got out ahead of the States, didn't we, on some of this stuff? You
had the abolitionists, the abolition with William, but actually, by that time, a lot of women weren't buying sugar because they thought, and what's his name, the potter, the famous potter,
Stoke. Is it
Wedgwood? They made these beautiful plaques of slaves looking up and messages saying this is wrong.
Okay.
They knew.
All right, so it's still very current for some.
Let me tell you about a conversation that made my blood pressure spike so high. My ancestors felt it. There is this video going around, all the white British journalists sitting across from younger voices, and she's out here saying that asking for reparations for slavery is like checks notes, an empty gesture that won't change how black people feel about their history. Feel. She's talking about feel. Like we're out here with hard feelings about being bred like cattle, worked to death, and having our entire cultural identities erased. Like this is therapy we need, not stolen wealth we're owed. She said, and I quote, "No living British citizen was part of the slave trade, so we are not responsible for the crimes of dead slave traders." It's cool. So let me ask you this. When Germany was forced to pay reparations after the First World War, did anyone say, well, these young Germans were not even born yet, so let's just forget about it? When Japan had to pay massive reparation bills, did the world say, hey, different generation, different vibe, so they don't have to pay it? Oh, these people, they paid it all, and they're still even paying it up to date. But when it comes to black people, when it comes to the wealth extracted from African bodies, African land, African labor, suddenly history is too long ago to matter. Let us do some math. I love math, by the way, and that is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. Abraham Lincoln was shot in 1865, right? Maybe someone was born in, and like 100 years later, my grandmother was born. Couldn't even be someone who was enslaved, right? That's not ancient history. That's last weekend in generational time, right? And here's the part that really gets me. This journalist keeps saying writing a check won't solve anything. You know what? She's right about one thing there. A check won't undo the trauma that we're going through or we've been through. But you know what it will do? It will give us options. It will give the black people options. Options to buy back land that was stolen, options to fund our own schools that actually teach our history, options to build businesses without begging white-owned banks for loans they deny us at twice the rate of white applicants. And that, yes, that right there is what they're really afraid of. Because let us be crystal clear about something here. Britain is not just sitting on old slave money. They're actively profiting right now. Gold from Ghana, diamonds from South Africa, oil from Nigeria. The extraction has never stopped. They just started paying pennies on the dollar and called it trade agreements. The British Museum is literally full of artifacts stolen from Kenya, Zimbabwe, Somalia, all over Africa. Our cultural heritage locked behind glass in London while they charge admission, right? They're making money off our stolen property. and then telling us you're being unreasonable for asking it back. I need you to understand something. Something about the African diaspora experience. I know my brothers and sisters in the diaspora, they don't just carry the weight of knowing what happened. I know they carry the weight of watching people deny it, minimize it, and then get annoyed when they won't shut up about it, right? Someone like me who grew up in Kenya, and I remember the first time I really understood what slavery meant, because I was born at the coastal of Kenya where the British and Arabs came in. They sanitized from the textbook version. The real thing is not there. The breeding farms, the children sold away from mothers, the rape used as a weapon, the bodies thrown overboard when they got sick, and then I have to walk into spaces where people who benefited from that system looked me in the eye and said, "Why are you still talking about this? Like, why are you still poor in Africa?" Right? So this journalist sitting in a comfortable studio talking about how we should disengage from demanding reparations. She has the luxury of disengagement. She gets to forget because remembering doesn't cost her anything. But for us as black people, as Africans, we don't get to forget about that. Every time we're followed in a store, every time our resumes get thrown out because of our names, every time we are denied loans, housing opportunities, right? You find that we are living the legacy of that ancient history she wants us to get over. She said money won't change how we feel about slavery. Yeah, you know what? Money won't erase the trauma, but it will damn sure address the economic trauma that's still happening up to date. And here's what really gets me about this whole debate, actually, guys. They love to bring up white abolitionists, but what about Quakers? What about the women who boycotted sugar? What about William Wilberforce? First of all, congratulations on doing the bare minimum of recognizing other human beings as human beings. You want a cookie? Okay. Second, those people were the exception, not the rule, and even they benefited from living in a society built on slave wealth. The infrastructure, the institutions, the inherited wealth, all of it traces back to exploitation. And now, when we ask for a fraction of what was stolen, not even the full amount, just a gesture, suddenly it's too complicated, and how do you even calculate that? But you calculated it just fine when you were insuring slave ships. You calculated it when you were pricing human beings. You calculated it when you were dividing up Africa at the Berlin Conference. The math was fine when it was making you guys rich. It's only too complicated now that the bill is due. And let me address this fear head on, because it's real and it's at the root of all this resistance. They are scared of what we'll do with the power, right? They are scared that if we have financial independence, we won't need their systems anymore. We won't beg for their jobs, their loans, their approval. We'll build our own systems to thrive in. And when you've spent centuries maintaining control, the thought of losing it is terrifying. So here's what this debate is really about, guys. It's not about whether reparations are reasonable or possible. Germany proved it's possible. Japan proved it's possible. It's been done before and it can be done again. This is about whether the descendants of enslaved people deserve the same consideration as the descendants of war criminals. It is about whether black wealth is legitimate or threatening. It is about whether we have the right to demand what's owed, or if we're supposed to be grateful for not being enslaved anymore. And I am here to tell you one thing. We are done, by the way, as African people, being grateful for basic human dignity. We are done accepting apologies without action. We are done letting people profit from our ancestors' pain while telling us to move on. To that journalist and everyone who thinks like her, you don't get to tell us what will or won't heal our community. You don't get to decide when history is relevant, and you definitely don't get to keep the profits while denying the date. Reparations ain't about making you feel guilty. They're about making things right. And if the thought of black people with economic power scares you, that says a lot more about you than it does about us. The truth is, they know reparations will work. That's exactly why they'll never willingly pay them. But we're not asking anymore. We are demanding for the reparations, and we are not going anywhere. Guys, as I come to the end of this video, I want to thank you for being here. Drop a comment down below. Do you think reparations will ever happen in our lifetime? Or is this a fight for the next generation? Hit that subscribe button if you want more uncomfortable truths that they don't want us to talk about, and share this with someone who needs to hear it, especially if they're one of those people who say get over it, because we are not getting over it anytime soon. We are getting what's owed. Right? Guys, I'm Sharik, and this is Real Talk for the Diaspora. I hope to see you in my next video. Peace.